You're live. Yay. Still some kind of a problem over on LinkedIn. Don't know why. I'm gonna have to get in touch with support for that because that's all it says is that there's an issue and it doesn't know what the issue is and get in touch with support. So that's where we're at. Sorry I'm late. There was a little bit of technical difficulty here getting set up. Riverside was being funky this morning, so I guess it needed a little extra time on its part to get everything up and running. Let's give people a couple minutes to get the notification that I'm live and come in and join the show. If you're over on the YouTube side, feel free to jump in the comments. I will see those. Over on X, it's harder to see those, so not going to be able to see the messages. I'll try to keep an eye on it, but for the most part, I haven't really seen too many people commenting there. So, my seltzer is spilling. I need like some funky background music to get started. I know I've said that before, but you know. Actually, last week I tried playing something that was what do you call it? That was I had license to for copyright, and Riverside noise canceled it out, and so I didn't actually end up hearing it. I did sell the software. I did tell the software that I am not using headphones, and so therefore I guess it's doing noise canceling on my microphone. But it was pretty funny because I was like, oh, here's music, and I'm over here and rocking out and whatever, and I played it back afterwards, and it was just silent me doing this. Let's see if it does. Let's see what this sounds like. Here, oh, this is a cinematic one. Actually, a playlist here. Try this again. All right, that's enough of that. That is Driving Cars onto Mars by Milano over on Artlist, which I have a subscription to and I have licensing for, so that's certainly not going to get me a copyright strike. I played a couple of weeks ago a song by The Cure, I believe it was, and during the stream it was fine. Then afterwards, I got a thing, and thankfully it wasn't the kind of strike where they demonetize you or whatever. But it was a hey, we don't care if you use this, but you need to. I got Mati over on X on the live side, so hey Mati. But yeah, so that was funny that I got copyright struck just because I was playing in the background, and I was like, "That's probably gonna happen," and then it did happen. So we're gonna stick to non-copyright, or at least to music that I have licensing to. All right, let's kick this off and get started. A bit of a longer show than last week, given that last week's show was like I don't know, 10 minutes. All right. Welcome back to Tech for Work, where I discuss the things that I found interesting in the tech and business world this week. My name is Jesse Nolan, and I am your host and the founder of tabGeeks. I wanted to say a special thank you to everyone who has watched my videos on YouTube for the past few years that I've been doing this. I just crossed 1 million views. The next goal is to hit 10,000 subscribers, so if you are not yet subscribed to the tabGeeks YouTube channel, I would appreciate it if you would head over there and hit the subscribe button. Last week's show, as I mentioned before, was crazy short because of the election. Nobody really wanted to be outshined in the spotlight by the election, and the election certainly sucked up all of the air for last week. And so there was, I don't know if you saw last week's show, but I'm pretty sure it was like 15 minutes long. So I think this one's going to be a little bit longer. I have a bit more of the in the agenda here to go through. Other things happening on the news today. Space nut alert, those who like space stuff, space nerds. In case you aren't already aware, today, SpaceX is trying their crazy amazing Starship launch test again. complete with a catch attempt and an attempt to relight a Raptor engine on Starship in space, which hasn't been done yet. This is currently scheduled for 5 p.m. Eastern or 2 p.m. for us West Coast folks here on the 19th of November. So that is later today. I understand that preparations are already underway. Our usual favorite space photographers and videographers are already on site. I suppose that I should have been wearing my everyday astronaut shirt in solidarity, but maybe I'll throw that on for some of the videos I'm recording later. If you're not familiar with this, they're going to be launching the Starship, which is the largest rocket that's ever been built. This is a full stack test. So this is going to be including the Starship and the booster that's called the Super Heavy booster, and they're going to be attempting to catch the booster again. Now, previously, SpaceX always has been landing their rockets throughout the last couple of years, the last several hundred launches that they've done. And their new thing is to catch the rocket that launches on the tower that it takes off from. And this is crazy, science fiction made real. It looks like a rendering. It looks like it's not real. And yet here they are, they're doing it. And this is their second attempt. They nailed it on the first try. Let's see if they can do it again. The whole rocket, soup to nuts, is nearly 400 feet tall, which is basically a 40-story building, give or take. And as it was compared last time, you're essentially launching a skyscraper and then turning it around and coming back and parallel parking a skyscraper on another building, basically. Essentially what happens is you've got the top, which is the Starship, and you've got the Super Heavy, which is the bottom, and they take off together, and then Starship continues into space, separates from the main rocket, and continues on into space, and then the Super Heavy turns around, flies back, and then lands right on the tower that it launched from. And the way that they do this is they have what they call these chopsticks, which are basically huge arms that move in on the rocket, and then they look little, but on a rocket that's 400 feet tall or several hundred feet tall, they're basically bigger than a human, and they look like little pads on the sides of the rocket, and they continue to, as the rocket goes down, they don't move, but they are load bearing, and they land on the arms, on the chopsticks, if you will, on the tower. And it's absolutely insane, because what this is going to be able to enable them to do is to then basically move this thing back into launch position, refuel, and theoretically launch it again in a very short period of time. Which is also very, very exciting. Additionally, today they're going to be attempting a relaunch, as I mentioned, of a Raptor engine in space. Quoting SpaceX here, hardware upgrades for this flight add additional redundancy to booster propulsion systems. They increase structural strength at key areas and shorten the timeline to offload propellants from the booster following a successful catch. Mission designers also updated software controls and commit criteria for the booster's launch and return. Any way you look at this, much excitement is definitely guaranteed, and me being a huge space nut and space being a huge part of our future, I think is very exciting overall. So figured I would put that out there as a PSA in case you weren't aware that that's happening again today. Make sure you either watch it live or catch the replay on all of the different videos that are going to be out there. Okay, on to some of the things that I got up to last week. My Mac Mini review is up. The short version is it's totally awesome. It's an excellent tiny form factor. It's low power. I love it. Go watch my IT department's guide, new Mac Mini M4 Pro review. It is tiny but mighty, and it's really, I think, the best bang for your buck, especially at the base model. If you're going to upgrade, then upgrade to a cool $1,000 for upgraded RAM and a double the hard drive, so 512 hard drive and 16 gig of RAM 16 is the base. Thank God that's what it comes with now. But if you're upgrading it, I think it's upgrade to 24, and that'll definitely give you a decent machine for the next several years. But even the base model, which is at 16 gig of RAM, and isn't the M4 Pro, it's just the M4, is going to be fantastic for most people. So go and watch the video. It's I do apologize for, in that video, I didn't realize when I was recording there was a bird cage right next to me, and they were doing tweet, 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 and the way that I had faced the camera, the sun was basically directly over the back of my head as the sun was going down out here in Southern California, and so the white balance on the camera was just going light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark the entire time. So maybe watch it not on 2x speed so that you don't get a seizure from all of the flashing, but also feel free to listen to it. I won't be offended if you don't pay attention to the video part of it, but I thought it was a good review. Speaking of good reviews, is I also sat down last week with Google Workspace expert Rowan Manson to discuss whether Gemini is ready for prime time. This was a great 45-minute conversation. It's available on YouTube, but also because it's essentially a podcast just like this show, I put it available on all of the podcast networks. So wherever you get your podcasts, it's the Tech for Work podcast by tabGeeks, and the title of it is Google's Gemini for Workspace ready for prime time. And I have to say, I think that the intro to this video is one of the best banger intros that I've ever done. So definitely go and take a look at that. I borrowed from a Google commercial for Gemini to start the intro, and then I used videos of myself talking about Gemini for the rest of it. And I thought it set the tone and kicked it off really well. So that was fun to make, and I hope you all enjoy watching it as much or more as I enjoyed making it. Next up on the news, Frontier Communications. You may not be aware if you live on the East Coast. I don't know if they have Frontier out there, but they have approved a deal to sell to Verizon, who you definitely have heard of, for $3.6 billion. Now, this is very interesting to me out here in Southern California because when I moved out here 10 years ago, I had Fios from Verizon, and that was my fiber optic internet, and it was great. And then Verizon, for whatever reason, decided we're going to sell this region, so Southern California or California, Oregon, Washington, I think, to Frontier. And it was a lack of a better term, not great. I was gonna look for my sensor button here because it was a cluster that. Essentially, I had to leave them because what ended up happening is they bit off way more than they could chew. The service degradation was terrible. I was getting charged for things that I was not using or paying for or getting or didn't order. The building was just all over the place, and they had constant outages. It was a real problem. And so I actually left my fiber optic connection to go to Spectrum cable, and it was not wonderful. And after a while, I got sick of being on cable. And for those who aren't aware, cable is much slower than fiber optic. Fiber optic has the same upload speed as download speed, whereas cable is you'll have 500 or a gig down, and you'll have 50 meg up, which is terrible. Doable if you're just one person in your own studio, but if you're uploading YouTube videos like I am, or have lots of people using the network and have lots of traffic on the network, it's not wonderful. So I moved back over to Frontier. Thankfully, Frontier straightened their shit out, and they were able to figure out what they needed to do in order to bring the service up to par. And they had some good deals to switch back, so I did. And I'm now very much enjoying Frontier. I have Frontier 1 gig. I'm looking at getting 2 gig here at the studio. And now it looks like they're going to sell to Verizon in the beginning of next year, in Q1 2025. So I'll leave a link to the article. It's in the Wall Street Journal, but it is a free link that, because I have a subscription, I can gift a link to any of you who click on it. So you'll be able to read that article for free, which goes into the rest of the details about that. Continuing in the communication space, T-Mobile has been added to the list of companies that was hit by the Salt Typhoon hacking group. AT&T, Verizon, and Lumen have been included in this as well. And if you're not familiar with this story, it came out a couple of weeks ago, or a month or so ago, that Chinese intelligence agency hackers essentially were able to breach the companies I mentioned before, and were able to access unencrypted data as well as listen in on phone calls. And you or I are probably not the targets of that. I believe it was targeting mostly the political campaigns. So if you are high up or somebody who works in security or IT for those campaigns, perhaps you were targeted. But this was probably them and other military, establishment, technology companies, etc. The attack vector was through vulnerabilities in Cisco routers. So update your shit, people. Make sure everything is patched, because there is obviously something in Cisco routers that allowed them to get basically full access to various communications companies. Here, T-Mobile put out a very PR type statement saying that they're closely monitoring the industry-wide attack, and at this time, T-Mobile systems and data have not been impacted in any significant way, and we have no evidence to impact or of impacts to customer information. That kind of goes against what the others in the industry are saying and what sources are saying is what went on. It seems like there was a lot more information that was I don't know if it was exfiltrated or not, or just listened, or what it was. But this was a pretty big hack, and once again, it's a weird space being in cybersecurity, and technically, we're legally as a company is not allowed to fight back, to hack back. And so a lot of times these things end up happening, especially if they're sponsored by a nation state, and they usually tend to happen around these times when we have sensitive national occurrences, such as elections. Small topic, nothing major. And it's usually somebody who's in a position of power, is in a government, or is on those teams. And so if you fall into those categories, make sure that you are updating everything and have top notch, following all the security protocols and so on, because this is not going away anytime soon. Speaking of security, Apple has rolled out a new advanced security feature, and this one wasn't really announced. It just kind of showed up, and some people were able to figure it out by taking apart the operating system and reverse engineering it. But essentially, what they have done is they've created something that is called a inactivity reboot feature. So when you have a phone and it's unlocked, or it's on and it has been unlocked, the encryption keys for your information are stored in memory on the device. And what can happen here is that makes it easier for hackers or police departments or the FBI, in theory, to be able to get onto a device and access your information because the encryption codes are saved there. And so this new feature in iOS 18.1 uses a 4-day timer, and it will auto reboot the device into a fresh state. So it reboots into a more secure state and wipes those encryption keys. And what this is going to do is it's going to make it all that much harder for hackers or law enforcement who are trying to get into a phone are not going to be able to access through the ways that they had done before. And this is Apple fighting back on the whole privacy front. So, quoting the article here, it says, when an iPhone is rebooted, it goes into a, quote, at-rest state, no longer storing encryption keys in memory. So there's no way to decrypt the data that you have on the phone, making it much more resistant to hacking attempts. So anyway, moving on from that, I thought that was very interesting as far as security goes. This is an interesting one from the FTC. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, or Telecommunications Commission rather, reports a 50% drop in consumer complaints of unwanted calls since 2021. And I read this and I thought, do you think that's just because everybody stopped complaining about the fact that we all get endless robocalls? Because I certainly have not experienced a 50% drop in robocalls coming to my device. In fact, it's probably up 50 or 200% since 2021. So I'm not sure the actual validity of what's happening here. Perhaps those calls have gone down. I certainly haven't noticed. Maybe we should all start a campaign to report every single one of those to the FTC so that they realize that, oh, this is still a big problem, and it's endless robocalls where I'll pick up the phone and it'll be silence, and then this is so and so. I was like, click, goodbye. Obviously, don't want to be talking to you. And a lot of times they won't even talk. It'll just be silence, and then the call will end. And the reason for that is because they're doing an automated check to see if your number is live. And so when you answer that, then it goes into a different list that they sell as a verified live phone number, and then those phone numbers are then sold to other companies as verified information, and then you get more calls from more people because that's how that market works. So I don't think that's fixed. Please continue working on fixing that. All right, over to the workspace side of things. Sorry, I have a little bit of congestion here. It got cold out here in California, and I was doing a lot of work outside in the yard on Sunday and Monday, so I'm a little congested here. All right, over to the workspace side. On Gems in Gemini, you're going to be able to upload docs and other file types to Gemini to train the gems. Essentially, a gem is a set of instructions for Gemini that instead of every time you open it up, where you would say you are a marketing director for a company, and the company does X, Y, and Z, and here's our core audience, and this is you should write this at that education level and for that type of an audience, and so on. It used to be that you would have to type that in every time just to make sure that the chatbot that you were speaking with, whether it was on ChatGPT or it was Gemini or any of the others, and then it would say, okay, I got that. Now what's the prompt? And then you would say, do X, Y, and Z, whatever it was you wanted it to do. Now with gems or GPTs, I think they call them over on ChatGPT. I don't remember. You can do the same thing on ChatGPT, but here you're going to be able to upload docs as a reference type, or a reference document when creating the gem. So if you have a branding guide, or if you have information about how you want something to look like for a campaign, you can just upload that document instead of copying and pasting, and it will be able to read all of that and create your gem based on that. And I'll include a link to more information in the show notes here. Let me actually just bring that up so that I have rollout information for you. I thought I had it linked here, but I guess not. Speaking of Gemini in the side panel in Gmail is finally able to tap into your Workspace calendar, where you're going to be able to do things like ask when is my first event next week, or create a 30-minute calendar event for my weekly yoga class every Monday and Wednesday at 8 a.m. Unfortunately, it cannot add or remove guests from events by extracting info from Gmail. And it's interesting the way that they put this, and you'll see why in a moment. Obviously, they are working on these things because they are mentioning it. Also, it cannot find the best time to meet with other people or find open slots, which is quite sad because that would be awesome and real assistant behavior, and cannot create tasks for out of office or manage meeting rooms. And it does state at the end of this update here that when these features are available, we will provide an update via the updates blog. So stay tuned for the ability to do all the things that I just mentioned that it's not able to do here, which is very exciting because those are really things that I want it to be able to do. So very exciting. And then another one here that is a very welcome update is in Google Chat on the home pane, which is at the top of your shortcuts there, and generally has your missed messages, unreads in chats. When you click on one of those, it goes and opens the entire chat, as opposed to some of the other parts of the interface where you can click into multiple panes. You are not able to do that from the home pane, and so split pane reply view is coming to the home pane in Google Chat, so that when you click on one of those in the home pane, it's just going to open another split pane, and you're going to be able to have your unreads on one side, and then the information of the chat or whatnot over on the right side. And that'll work pretty much just the way it does in the rest of the application, and I'm excited for that because that has been something that I've wanted it to do for quite some time. So well done, Google. Appreciate that, and I'll include links to when that's rolling out in the show notes. I don't believe we've talked about this one yet. Google Cloud has another new exam certification, a Google Cloud Associate Data Practitioner. That is for someone who secures and manages data on Google Cloud. It is a new exam, and as usual, in exchange for beta testing, you get cool swag. You get to save 40% on the cost of the certification, and you have unlimited attempts at succeeding on the test, because beta tests don't count unless you pass. It does cost $75, which is cheaper, 40% cheaper than the main fee when it is out of beta testing, and takes about 2.5 hours. And I will link to the information for the test in the show notes. Back in the world of Gemini, there is now a dedicated Gemini app for the iPhone. It is live on the App Store, and it includes Gemini Live in 13 languages with more to come. So go and download that. I've been playing around with it. I actually think I'm going to assign my action button to launch the Gemini Live app, because now that I have the new phone, I have the camera button, and there's not really any point in having a dedicated camera button and my action button being a shortcut to my camera. So I'm probably going to switch over to that and start using Gemini Live on the iPhone more often, which will be pretty cool. Okay, last but not least here, and this is bag of salt time. Not grain of salt, bag of salt. So there's a new report from Android Authority that suggests that Chrome OS is converting to a full Android operating system, essentially getting rid of the Chrome OS operating system. On this, I say don't hold your breath. This feels like one of those things that they say that they're exploring, not a direct mandate to do it. The report states that it's a multi-year project to migrate Chrome OS to Android. And while I do think that they are looking at ways to converge the system, there have been reports that, for example, the notification stack, the Bluetooth stack, more of the operating system is being taken from Android or running on the Android code. Um, I think it's a huge undertaking to switch the entire operating system over to Android. Now, I do think we'll get there. I think that they've been long kind of going in the same direction. I also think Google's big enough to maintain multiple operating systems, especially because they also have the Google Home units, which had a whole other operating system, and then they were working on yet another operating system for that. In typical Google fashion here, there's a lot of things up in the air, and then they see which one sticks. So that's why I say huge grain of salt here. I would like to be able to get to the point where we have Chrome OS and Android get close enough together so that you are able to have a full Chrome OS experience on Android devices, similar to DeX from Samsung, DEX. That experience is essentially where if you take your Samsung phone and you plug it into a monitor, you can plug in a keyboard and a mouse, and it will open a Linux-based desktop up for you where you have a browser and you can work as if it's your computer. And I think this is a wonderful opportunity over on the Google side for Chrome because you can use Chrome OS as a full desktop, and that would be incredible if all I'm carrying around is my Pixel Fold, my Pixel 9 Pro Fold, as is the full name. And if I'm on the go and then I get into the office, I just plug it in. I don't have to carry around a laptop or anything else. I have it all on my phone. That would be pretty awesome, especially given the crazy power, computing power that's going into these devices. I think that there's a lot of potential for that. That being said, I think it's going to take many years until we get to that point. There's also rumors that Google is working on a Pixel laptop again, or new, I suppose, because the original laptop was a Pixel, and then became Pixelbook and Pixelbook Go, which were both phenomenal devices. So I'd be very happy if they were working on that. Rumor has it that it might be running full Android. And Android has made some steps to have capabilities such as desktops and things that work better on larger screens, such as on their tablets. But I think that could be more in the direction of making Android more useful as a tablet operating system that could be plugged into a keyboard and mouse, as opposed to completely getting rid of Chrome OS, which is a lightweight and phenomenal operating system that is more secure and more manageable than Android is. So I guess stay tuned for the next couple of years. We shall see what happens there. Google, if you're working on that new laptop, send it to me. I want to play with it. And on that note, I do have a couple of Chromebooks that I am working on reviewing this week. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks, I'll be able to get videos out about those. Now, I've got a whole bunch of videos to go and film, including finishing up with the Ubiquiti Power Amp. Expect that video hopefully in the next couple of days or early next week. And that's pretty much it from me. A little bit longer of a show, half an hour, not too bad. So have a great week, everyone, and I'll see you next time.